Alright, that should bring us back where we are supposed to be. Sorry about that. My computer decided that was a good time to update a few things, which was causing a few issues. We should be live. Awaiting a real quick confirmation that that is the case, and don't worry, I will micro machines my way through this shit like you can't imagine to make sure that we're done with some time to spare for questions. Yeah, alright, everything's humming now. Pretty annoying to be on here researching and working all day and to have it choose that particular moment to go shitty on me. Okay. I think we're good. Looking for notification. It's okay. I'll talk really, really fast. I will be less laid back and I will burn through this shit. So, just looking for a heads up. And then should be good to go. We good, I'm getting. Okay, so someone will tweet the thing at me. I will restart the thing in about a second. People waiting on the link. It's okay. We did 13 games last show in we can get it done in time. I'm not worried. Alright. Alright, here we go. Don't worry. I'll just have to talk super fast. Just imagine that I'm doing it at, 1.5 times speed. Here we go. Let's dance. Let's talk about the first game of the evening with the Hawks going into the Bucks. The Hawks are going to be an interesting team to talk about this evening. Trae Young won't play for rest. Pretty annoying that they're going to rest him for the first time on the 81st game of the season. Should have let the kid build some sort of streak. Keep the momentum going. Kind of annoying, but they are going to rest Trae Young. They are going to rest John Collins. That obviously makes them really thin. The problem is, well, not so super thin. They still have 10 bodies they can roll out there. And they're obviously still missing Dedmon, who is still out. Spellman is still out. Poitras is still out. But Huerter is going to suit up and play. They're going to go with the mega twin tower 7-footers of Humphreys starting next to Alex Len, which is up by itself all kinds of interesting. The issue here is the matchup. Now, be aware this could turn into super fantasy game again like it did when these two teams played a few weeks ago and everybody rested everybody and everybody put up 1 billion fantasy points. I don't think we can expect that here, presuming that the Bucks run out their whole team at anywhere close to full strength. At the moment, I'm guessing Giannis goes out there for some nominal period of time, but we're going to be looking for news on that as the day comes. Mirotic will still be out. Brogdon will still be out. Snell will be out no matter what. Huerter being in makes this slightly less exciting for me than it would have been otherwise. He himself is in play. That's fine. Taurean Prince, especially on FanDuel, where he's cheap as a small forward. Fine. Super, not thrilled with it. Wouldn't make it into one lineup, either of them for me. Alex Len, still pretty appealing for me at 5,000. I think he's a good low-priced center. There's a lot of chalky centers in that 5K range. There's Willie Cauley-Stein in there, a couple other guys we'll get to, but I have no issue with you playing 5K for Alex Len in any format. Bembry carries an upside, like him a lot more on FanDuel, where he's substantially cheaper. You can play him at small forward. Bazemore makes, again, FanDuel an ideal small forward punt, but on DK, I worry a fair bit about this Hawks team going into potentially what is a just get your ass kicked environment. If we get news that several Bucks are sitting, that'd be pretty exciting for me. If we get, that's going to open up all kinds of value. But until we get some sort of confirmed lineup here out of the Bucks, this is a spot that makes me nervous. And there are a lot of brilliant other plays on several other teams this evening where I don't want to overrush the Hawks. So again, a lot of them carry a lot of upside on FanDuel where they are also droppable. On DraftKings, I would try to limit my exposure to a guy or two. I don't think you want to go crazy here. Favorite at the moment, probably Alex Len. It's just a bit muddied, and again, showing the fact that they're going to start Humphreys means that you again are looking at a situation where maybe the starters get limited, time gets bounced around a lot. And this is not an ideal environment going into Milwaukee, so some real concern there. Again, for the Bucks, you're going to be missing Tony Snell, missing Malcolm Brogdon, missing Mirotic definitely. Giannis questionable. The price on FanDuel is massive. 13K is really quite a number. I'd have trouble getting there if he was fully healthy with as many options as we have on this slate. 11-6 on DK, if you find out he's playing and starting, is fine. I would probably rather start James Harden. I would rather start some of the other big spend-up options. In the news that Giannis is out, obviously Bledsoe is my number one guy. Middleton becomes my number two. Certainly a matchup in which you can catch a ceiling out of Brook Lopez. Just tournaments, obviously, because the floor is there. And there's a real chance, again, most importantly, I guess to point out here is the Hawks don't really want to win, and the Bucks don't really care. So any number of weird things can happen here. This is a slate where there's not a lot of consistency on a lot of players, so we should try to... there are a lot of guys with upside and feel a lot safer than players on both these teams because of the uncertainty. That being said, if Giannis is out and Bledsoe is starting, he's going to be one of my favorite guys. He obviously, when he doesn't decide to play dodgeball and whip the ball at people, can put up some sort of massive upside. And Chris Middleton, still under 7K, is way too cheap. Massive ceilings there. Sterling Brown, again, much, much better on FanDuel. Obviously, positive matchup for everyone on this team. But they're going to run 10 guys, and there's some real concern with just sort of the consistency there. Let's go ahead and go on to Phoenix. Going into Houston, talking about the Giannis will play. Well, there you go. Normally, you'd be like, sweet, you can run Giannis in a tournament on FanDuel. It's small forward, and it's FanDuel where gross points count significantly. I thought Giannis would play. You have to worry about the minutes. It is an enormous slate, but if I was building 150 lineups on FanDuel, I'd have 10 Giannis because he might play 26 minutes and score 68 fantasy points, which on FanDuel, where gross points is so much more important a position, I could go for it. I might like him more than on DK, which is really strange. But be aware, him playing some massive number of minutes here is fairly unlikely, and him playing obviously limits the upside of those other players. So despite the fact that there's a lot going on around this game, I'm kind of unexcited about the Hawks and the Bucks. I'm going to keep moving for time's sake. The Suns against the Rockets. The Suns, a team I expect to get pretty significantly over-owned here today. So going into that last game, I, and apparently everyone else in the world except for one beat writer who guessed at it, thought that they would presumably start their best lineup, which would be Dragon Bender at the 5 and Josh Jackson at the 4. They elected to start Dragon Bender at the 5 and, Dragon Bender and Ray Spalding in the front court. And Spalding absolutely went off. Was amazing. Had 50 going into overtime and played 30 seconds of overtime only when Bender fell out and got one additional rebound. He was phenomenal. I did not like him very much on that day simply because I didn't know he was going to necessarily play more than 20 minutes. Their best lineup would have been generally him backing up Dragon Bender. That would have been the end of it. They have other guys who can play down at the 4. So today, I presume he will start again, and he's brilliant. FanDuel, really hard to get away from a minimum price. Now, depending on exactly the measure of how chalky my guy there gets, I can certainly see going other places. Trey Lyle strikes me as the first pivot away from super chalky guy. But 3,500 for a guy, even in what is obviously now a much worse matchup. So I'll step back and say that for a second. This is a much worse matchup. This isn't the Pelicans, who don't do anything defensively. This is the Rockets, who have become a really good team defensively and sort of pride themselves on it. So I have, some concern there. My other concern with Ray Spalding is he's like 6'6", 210 pounds soaking wet. So I just thought, Jahlil Okafor would lean on him and there would be foul trouble issues. And obviously none of that came to pass and he was brilliant here. But I would temper my expectations a little bit, and 4,300 on DK, there's some pretty stellar plays on DK today, depending on how chalky my boy comes out to be, and I will attempt to burn through this so we can get to ownership sometime soon. I think it's reasonable to have some concern there. Going into the last game, I said my preference for the guards was Crawford first over Kobo and Bridges. That works out. Today it would be Elie Kobo, simply because Jamal Crawford's price has gotten out of control. He's 5,400 and 4,600. That's a bit much to play for Jamal Crawford in a not ideal environment. If you're trying to get a guard out of this game for some reason, it would be Elie Kobo for me. I have concerns with Josh Jackson. And I loved him last game, and at under 6K, he gave you his, 48 in regulation and 60 in overtime. This is not a great matchup. I'm absolutely fine with playing Josh Jackson. I have him projected for somewhere around 40 fantasy points. And I haven't had time to peek at the ownership yet. We'll do that in a second. We'll do it now since I've now referenced it 7 times, and I will forget to remember all these things and check them out. But it is not a good matchup. Even if you think he's going to get 40 fantasy points, it comes into whether or not, at what extent he is owned, and obviously the price is up $800 and $1,700 respectively between the two sites. So let's see. Josh Jackson, we have him at 18% currently. I'm fine with that. That's about appropriate ownership. I like him much more on DraftKings than I do on FanDuel, where last game you could have picked any 2 out of the 3 power forwards on FanDuel and done well for the Suns. They have announced the Hawks starters, and Bembry is not starting. He's coming off the bench. So it's Jalen Adams is going to get the start. I guess I should have specifically referred to Jalen Adams. Again, concerned with matchup. Concerned that necessarily all the minutes are there. Right now I have him at 31 minutes and 25 fantasy points. That obviously feels fine. Minimum price on FanDuel, $3,400 on DK, I think is the tag there. There are so many great plays around him that I don't think he makes single lineup for me, but you obviously want some exposure there. It's again going to depend on popularity to a certain bit. But no, Bembry is going to continue to come off the bench to answer your question. Josh Jackson, obviously real stud potential here, but he's also a guy who has managed to dud many times, even when he was starting and getting 30 whatever minutes. He's started and gotten 30 minutes against this Rockets team in the past and had issues. At 18%, I think that's about the right number. I would want some, but be aware that the Pelicans and the Rockets are very, very different defensively. No reason on a slate this juicy to pay 5.8 on FanDuel for McCall Bridges, 5,000 on DK on the very edge of playable. Dragonbender is generally not a great fantasy player, even in that last game where, again, you are playing the Pelicans, which is close to best possible matchup. He took 7 shots in his, 39 minutes. He's not a guy who gets involved in the offense, and you do not frequently catch, 7 blocks out of him. That's a pretty rare occurrence. I would almost guarantee that was his career high. So, I will give the same analysis I did last time. I have real concerns for the upside, and again, some peculiar shit happened last time, and he also ended up around 50 fantasy points. But again, that was in basically a G League All-Star game. I'm not going there against the Rockets. If he puts up 40 somehow tonight, I will eat crow absolutely. Disinterested in this team. Rockets. First of all, try to run it back if you are going to go heavy on some of those guys. If you're going to play Josh Jackson, you really want this, game to stay close. Would certainly help you. The prices on FanDuel better for James Harden. I have no issue with you playing James Harden. If this game stays close, he can do 100. If this game doesn't stay close, he can do 70. So probably like that. The most of the 3 guys, Chris Paul and Clint Capella, much more attractively priced on DK, where I think they're okay to go to. FanDuel, I would be many, many lineups in until I got there. You need the game to stay close for them to justify those prices, basically. And again, we just saw this against the Knicks, where they demolished them in a very similar game, and Harden got 50 or 55 or something, which wasn't good enough, and Paul and Capella got about 35 in 23 minutes apiece or something. It's a fine matchup for all of them. But they basically profile as tournament plays. FanDuel, I like Harden quite a bit, I should say. At 11.8, that price is very reasonable and an amazing matchup. Again, just I broke the slate upside is there. 1,200 less than Giannis in a similar smash spot. And again, just gross points per position plays much more there. DK, I significantly prefer Point Donovan Mitchell and a couple other guys. You can certainly Paul, you can certainly Capella, you can certainly play for the blowout and Kenneth Faried or something of that nature. But that is about that for me. Let's go on to Washington and New York. I like this game quite a bit. I like Mario Hezonja at his price. He managed to get there against the Rockets, which is a below average matchup, being friendly about it. It's simply through gross usage. He's one of the best plays of the day on DraftKings, and at 5,600, and is not out of play at all at 7,400 on FanDuel. Again, the way this team is playing right now, he can just claim all the usage in the world. We just saw it, and he managed to throw up his triple-double, whatever the hell, 55-60 burger. Against the Rockets, he can certainly do it against the Wizards, who are pretty porous defensively, as we all know. I would prefer Mitch to Thomas Bryant pretty significantly on either side. I have Mitch projected for 4 or 5 fantasy points more than Thomas Bryant. Like his matchup more. A little more secure in his minutes. If you're looking at any of the Wizards, you obviously want Jabari Parker out. But to go back for the Knicks real quick, you can run Kevin Knox out there in a tournament. Could get 40 minutes, can blunt force his way to a fantasy lineup, not making it into one lineup. But if you're, building 100, some exposure to Knox is fine. Damian Dotson on FanDuel at 4,600. Again, never going to make it into one lineup in the world of Harden and Monty Morris and several other amazing shooting guards. But a guy you could have some exposure to who probably sees 30-plus minutes, could get like 40 minutes again. They're obviously very, very thin, although Dennis Smith Jr. coming back and playing some off the bench limits all these guys a little bit. He himself a little bit risky, obviously. Probably plays 16, 18 minutes, so I wouldn't go too crazy there. But I like Mitch Robinson a lot. He's just too cheap on DK. He has 60-point upside in this matchup. No hyperbole whatsoever. The minutes are secure. They want to give him all the time. If he doesn't foul out, he will not disappoint you. He literally just does too much with rebounding and putbacks, and the matchup is too good that him playing 30 minutes and not getting 35 fantasy points at 7,100 is really, really hard for him to do. I have him projected for a good bit over 40, and 50, 60 are in the can. So I like Mitch quite a bit. He and DeMarcus Cousins in the top tier of centers for me on DK, and then about 11 guys tied below that who I have some appeal for. Don't really want to go anywhere else on the Knicks. Regarding the Wizards, Beal went up to 31 minutes again last game, which just served to screw everyone a little bit. 30 minutes against the Knicks, he can crack this open a little bit. Only 8,700 on both sites. I would never have him in one lineup. I don't think I'd have any in 150 because, again, the game before that he played 22 minutes. There is a real floor for the minutes. But, if you told me you had Bradley Beal in a tournament lineup, especially on FanDuel, I'd be like, okay, I guess it could work. But, again, Harden, Monty Morris, Donovan Mitchell, there's just guys I'd really rather get in there. Satoransky, 5,600 on FanDuel. Can crack out a big number there. I like Bobby Portis a ton if Jabari Parker doesn't play. Obviously, there's still some risk, but the upside just simply becomes incredible. Again, especially FanDuel, 6,500, one of many underpriced, pretty sexy power forwards there. Jabari Parker, again, they may run him out there. You would think they wouldn't push it whatsoever. I didn't expect to see him today. It's certainly news you want to keep an eye on if he's out. Troy Brown on FanDuel is a little better at 4,500. Portis himself gets a whole lot safer. Even Thomas Bryant picks up a little extra security in that situation. Moving on to the next game, let's talk about the Celtics hosting the Magic. There is not a lot to like here. As far as the Celtics go, I like Kyrie Irving, especially on FanDuel. Just when his number is getting down into the 8s, both these teams playing to win this game, he can drop 60. We'll look at the ownership for everyone or a dump, but Kyrie Irving, by far my favorite Celtic. After that, it probably comes down to, it would actually end up being a little bit site-dependent, I think. FanDuel, it would be Marcus Morris, who's only 4,400. DK would probably be Jason Tatum at 6,100, who's just getting all kinds of minutes. But we have guys coming back and healthy. Jaylen Brown will get some limited minutes off the bench. Horford will play against the Magic on a slate this big. Beyond those guys, I think you're really being a little bit too cute. As far as the Magic goes, pretty similar story here. Don't mind Vooch. Not a great matchup for him, but, in cash or some such, 9,700, 9,600, almost certainly going to get you 40. Probably get you somewhere around 45 to 50. Probably in this matchup, not much more than, say, 55. There are other upside centers I like more. And again, obviously centers I think have similar upside and project not that differently, who cost $2,000, $3,000 less. So I'm not going to tell anyone not to play Vooch on this slate, but I'd be a few lineups in before I got there, and the rest of the squad has been priced all the way back up. We no longer have, 4.8, 4.9 Terrence Ross. He's 5.7 on both sites. Evan Fournier, 6K on both sites. Jonathan Isaac's price is back up a little bit. Augustine is where he's always been, which is pretty limited as upside in tournaments, and in a pretty hard matchup with the Celtics. I just don't think you need to go there, so I'm going to save time and move on to the next game. The Clippers playing the Golden State Warriors. Danilo Gallinari, my guy, your guy, our guy. Not going to suit up and play today. Even more likely, this game is going to be a little bit of a train wreck. Everybody in For the Warriors, Pat Beverly, I think, still technically doubtful. JaMychal Green, not on the injury report, was away for a personal reason. I presume will play. I presume will start. I think it makes a very interesting punt away from Trey Lyles, Ray Spalding, all the chalky power forwards on FanDuel right now without the knowledge, because whether or not he's there and playing, I assume he will. I would be surprised if we have this all wrong through, but at $4,200, if he just doesn't play, it would not end your day. There was a decent chance you were going to drop him anyway, and there's some sort of decent upside there at what would be 1% ownership. So JaMychal Green, if he plays and starts, is fine. Raw points is not going to project as well as those other guys I talked about, not as well as Mason Plumlee, who's power forward in some places, not as well for me as Trey Lyles, not as well as Ray Spalding, a little better than Dragon Bender, but worth it at the potential of seeing a pile of time at what's obviously a very nominal price. Both these bench guys have, between Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell, who obviously carry the water for this team off the bench. Lou Williams still a little too cheap on FanDuel. Fine matchup with the Warriors for him. He's done fairly well in the past and always carries a massive upside. Never going to make it in one lineup, but if you ended up with Lou Williams, that's fine. Montrezl Harrell all the way down at $5,900 on DraftKings. Tough to get to him even with his hybrid availability, because you're playing him over Trey Lyles and Mason Plumlee or Cousins or Robinson or Spalding or Bender or any number of these guys. So tough to get there, but $5,900 on DK is a remarkably low price. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, again, on a big slate in tournaments, I don't want to pay 6-1 or 6-6 for him. Landry Shamet, the matchup isn't terribly great for him. Garrett Temple is not a big GPP upside guy. Meh. Not a ton to like there. DK, the Warriors, DeMarcus Cousins is $6,800 now in a glorious matchup. I have no idea what the hell is going on there. Yeah, he should be $8,000 on DK, so he's simply mispriced by like $1,200. I'll look at the ownership in a second. I assume it is massive. You know what? I'll look at it now. Number 3 ownership at 35%. Right now we show Mason Plumlee 56%. Cool. De'Aaron Fox 38%. That's one I'd come in under a little bit just because he does have an injury designation. That game could certainly blow out, and there's just a million other places to go. He's actually we got an update here. He's now fallen to 4th at 30%. It's a little more tolerable. No issue with De'Aaron Fox. He's probable. Almost certainly going to play, but there's no reason for them to super push it with him. So there's the upside there, but there's also just the, he plays 31 minutes and gets 38 fantasy points, and there's obviously a lot of amazing plays. But yeah, Mason Plumlee, Trey Lyles, Monty Morris, projecting 1st, 3rd, and 5th. Cousins 2nd right now, which he should be. He's amazing. I imagine I would be over that number even there. I don't want Durant today at that price. I don't mind Steph, but again, I'd probably rank them DK, Cousins, then Clay, then Draymond, then Steph, then Durant today. I think there's a real chance they put the hammer down here. And again, with this team, even when they don't put the hammer down, there's just a real chance that everybody scores 30 to 40. And that does it for Cousins at $6,800. For the other guys, it represents a real downside. Andre Iguodala will be out. I do not consider that actionable news at the moment. Moving on to the next game. The Pelicans going against the Kings. Again, the Suns just showed us what you can do against these Pelicans when they come up and try and put out a game. De'Aaron Fox is too cheap for this matchup. Might play 36, 38 minutes and destroy the world. Might take it easy. They might blow them out. You could get a larger dose of Yogi Ferrell, etc. But the ceiling is absolutely there for De'Aaron Fox at those numbers. I like him quite a bit. I like him a little more than Buddy Hield at his prices. I like Buddy Hield a little more than Bogdan Bogdanovic at their prices, but those tiers are fairly thin. It's Fox, Hield, slightly larger jump to Bogdanovic. But especially on DK, $4,900, Bogdanovic is a play I like a lot. Both of the main center backups we usually see for Willie Cauley-Stein are out in that Harry Giles and Costa Koufos are missing. I don't want to go hunting the... Jesus, who the hell gets now? Is it Caleb Swanigan? Whoever the... I don't know who the 4th stringer is right now. I'm not going to be terribly interested in that. Rashawn Holmes is out. I presume that was the case with the analysis previous. No change to the Suns. But I do think it's fairly likely now you get 30 minutes of Willie Cauley-Stein in a great matchup. So 5,300, 5,100. I like him a lot. I would have to recompute a couple things after the news with the Hawks. I would have him very similar to Alex Len, and I imagine the ownership will stay pretty low. I like Willie Cauley-Stein quite a bit. Again, they still have their 7 main dogs here, so you will see some sort of a haircut. Doesn't seem like a day you have to force Nemanja Bjelica, but FanDuel 4100, great matchup. I can certainly see worse place to go at my small forward position. Harrison Barnes, still more of a cash play for me, just not a guy who like ever will throw out 50 for you, especially with all 7 of the dogs here. Bearing the lead a little bit, I like Marvin Bagley quite a bit. Real chance that he plays 34 minutes because he and Willie Cauley-Stein just share the center and they don't play any Caleb Swanigan bullshit. So I like Marvin Bagley quite a bit. Again, power forward, a very coveted position this evening, and he doesn't point per dollar rank with Trey Lyles or Mason Plumlee or any of those guys. But he does carry 50-point upside in this matchup, and for that reason deserves significant consideration. Let's move on to, we'll do Portland and Denver now, if my notes will load. If not, I have 3 computers. I'm just going to start hosting off another one. So, the big news, Denver going to be resting Murray and Jokic and Millsap. They still want to win this game. Seeding is very much relevant. Portland wants to win this game. There's an interesting dance out west, which normally I would take 5 minutes and talk about with people kind of want to play Portland in the first round as they're probably the easiest out at this point. So there's when you talk about Houston wanting to win and wanting to lose, there's some cross-motivation here, but for the moment we'll say that both these teams are motivated to move on. Monty Morris is a spectacular play at $4,200, $4,300. He's great. He is currently projected as only the 5th highest player on DK at 30%. I would have more than that. He does not have the security of Mason Plumlee. It is easier for Monty Morris to disappoint. But there is a big ceiling there. I really love both those guys, but I like Monty Morris at 30% more than I like Mason Plumlee at 55. Torrey Craig, Trey Lyles, the likely fill-in we expect to see there. Minimum price on FanDuel, I like a lot. Have projected less than Ray Spalding. Looking at the FanDuel ownership real quick, Spalding's as high as I expect. He is. He's number 2, especially without the news of who's going to start there. I would probably start Trey Lyles. Pretty good fantasy player. He's a fantasy point per minute guy. This matchup not nearly as it would have been with Nurkic roaming around recently. So we currently have him at about half the ownership of Ray Spalding. I probably slightly prefer Trey Lyles at half the ownership. In what's a slightly better matchup. I think the undersold pieces here will be the guys who are always there, being Harris and Barton. Certainly a chance they express themselves a little bit more, particularly like Barton on FanDuel, where he's currently projected at about 10% ownership. Clearly a guy who can go out there and take some upside, and where sure, Monty Morris is an exceptional point guard, Will Barton can absolutely and has frequently run an offense. Malik Beasley in play. Torrey Craig will play 23-24 minutes in this matchup, but again, he's like the 6th best value play on his own team. Again, this is not a terrible matchup anymore with Nurk out there. This game projects to stay close. This team wants to win, and the whole team costs $4,000. And literally the DK prices for the starting 5 are 43, 4,000, 42, 31, 47, presumably. So, getting to Torrey Craig, profile is just fine for me. This is a matchup they're going to run him out there, and it seems like a bridge too far. And again, not to sell on Mason Plumlee. I like him a ton, and very playable as your center on FanDuel, where he will be one of the chalkiest owned centers. That's what I was thinking of when I was talking about pivots of Alex Len and Willie Cauley-Stein, both of whom I like quite a bit. Mason Plumlee, 36% on FanDuel. Len, 4. So you kind of see where I'm going there. And Willie, 6. So, yes, I would rather run either of those guys if those ownership percentages are approximately correct. Dame or Curry on FanDuel, I would run Dame. Dame has been legitimately bad relative to what I expected out of him over the last week. Sans Nurkic, sans McCollum. Now McCollum is back. Makes sense to me. This is the spot. It doesn't make any sense to me, but I fully expect this to be the spot where Lillard just goes nuts, and the price obviously has come down from Jan up to 10.7 to now 9.2 on both sites. I like him quite a bit. Regarding the the Trailblazers. When I say I like Dame, I mean I like him in a tournament because I think people will be largely off him with all the other options, and I do think there's still definitely a ceiling there. They just played this game a few days ago. He was bad. He's generally not great against Denver, but this isn't Denver anymore. Anyhow, looking at the rest of the team, you can still play Enes Kanter, and you would have been happy if you did so every day for the last 4 games or what have you. Did very well against Denver just a few days ago with Jokic in. Now you have Mason Plumlee in there, which probably is actually a tougher defensive matchup, come to think about it, but less likely that you get yanked off the floor for your shitty defense, which, again, has not been happening. Real interesting thing to watch in the playoffs, how long they can keep running Kanter out there. But Kanter's price up to $7,200, $7,000. I wouldn't have a lot of interest, as there's those 3 $5,000 centers we spoke about recently with Plumlee and Len and Willie Cauley-Stein, all of whom I have projected only slightly less, and again, $2,000 is a lot of money to gain 2 fantasy points. Rest of this team, you can Rodney Hood if you want to. This matchup will be a little better for him, but I'm talking about if I had 150 lineups, I'd have 0 on DK and 3 on FanDuel, something like that. Harkless at 4,400 on DK creaks the edge of playable with everything going on here, but McCollum being back can cost everyone a little bit of usage. I think getting beyond Lillard and Kanter is being a little bit too cute. Let's move on to the next game, going as quick as we can. What do I have, 2 left? 1 left. This is it, right? I think I got them all. This job's too easy. I'm going to turn off the stream again for about 5 minutes, because this is just too easy. I'm kidding. Having some fun there. Okay. Utah going into Los Angeles. Jake Crowder, I believe, is still questionable. Doesn't really matter. We don't need him as far as power forward value goes on this slate. But Derek Favors, that's your new name. Howell Neto, Kyle Korver, and Ricky Rubio, most importantly, are still out. I have a lot of affection here, especially on DK at $8,600 for Point Donovan. This is the season of the witch. Shout out to anyone who gets old rock and roll references. They will... you can play Royce O'Neal on FanDuel. It strikes me as sort of a... Now, you can play Royce O'Neal on DK too. He's $3,500. He has shown that in decent matchups, when he gets the starter time and everything goes his way, he can randomly bang out 40 fantasy points once in a while. But most of the time, he's like a 0.7 fantasy point per minute guy, and is unlikely to be the guy who eats here against the Lakers, and again, some guys are going to eat. So in one lineup, I'm not going to have any Royce. In a pile of lineups, yeah, especially on FanDuel, obviously, where he's the minimum droppable, matchup's great. Yeah, I would get there, but again, difficult to go there over Lyle Spalding. But there's just many other guys who are more likely to bang out a 40 burger that you didn't expect. Joe Ingles in play against the Lakers. Not going to make it into first lineup again. Paying nearly $7,000 for him is tough, but the matchup is superlative, so it's not crazy. Gobert on DK, I like a lot at 9,000. Very safe floor. Shocked if he doesn't get you 40. But JaVale McGee has actually been a fairly able defender against him. He scores, I believe, lower than his career average against him in time on the court pretty significantly. And I just think they go other places. But I'm not going to differ with anyone who plays Rudy Gobert against the Lakers, especially on DK at 9,000. FanDuel 10-6, I think you're probably being a little bit too cute there. I would be many, many lineups in until I got to that point. The Lakers themselves, Alex Caruso. I'm going to have trouble playing... I'm going to have trouble playing any Lakers on this slate. This is a great slate. There's tons of guys. They're very cheap. Going against the Jazz, it just simply isn't necessary unless there's something brilliant. I love Alex Caruso. I love seeing him come through undrafted, looking like the guy who pumps my gas and doing putback dunks and blowing LeBron's mind. That's excellent shit. I don't need to play Alex Caruso at 6,500, 6,100 against the Jazz. I don't need to play Rondo. I don't need to spend $7,000 on him or $6,000 on KCP. If I'm playing someone from this team, it would be Mo Wagner, because I would want to spend as little as possible if you forced me to play someone from this team. Yeah. Willie Cauley-Stein or Len on DraftKings. Best part about Caruso is he's 25 years old. Yeah, there's so many best parts about Caruso. The worst part of him is 25 years old and he's balding badly. Willie Cauley-Stein or Len on DK. I would prefer Willie Cauley-Stein. I feel really secure in the minutes. Len has a very weird matchup. I don't know what the hell is going to happen in that game. Willie Cauley-Stein should go out there with no real backup, and he and Bagley are going to play 48 minutes of center. I think you probably get 30 minutes out of Willie Cauley-Stein in an amazing matchup. And you say, how amazing of a matchup? It's the matchup Ray Spalding and Dragon Bender just put 50 up a piece in. So I guarantee you Willie can do it. That Hawks-Bucks game makes my ass hurt as of right now. I don't know exactly what the hell is going to happen and how, but I sense something weird going. The Suns will start who we thought they would. Okobo, Bridges, Jackson, Bender, Spalding. I have no issue really with any amount of Jackson or Spalding. And I don't mind Bridges or even Bender, because like the usage is there. It's not like he's bad. It's just like at $5,000, there's all the Denver guys who I like more, so that makes it tough. I think you accidentally skipped the Pelicans when talking about the Kings. I might have done that. Wouldn't be the first time going 100 miles an hour. Thanks. See, that's the kind of feedback I need here. I'm sure I skipped the Pelicans because I don't remember talking about Randall or Payton or anyone else. Kings, a good pace team, but a subtly underrated defense recently, and this Pelicans team has gone all shitward with the minutes. If Anthony Davis plays, I'm going to love windmilling him the hell in there, for what it is worth. Guy hasn't played in 10 days, and he has really shown since his minutes got limited that, I just skipped the Pelicans going as fast as I could. Anthony Davis goes in there. I'm really going to enjoy some, whatever, $6,500 Anthony Davis or whatever he is, for what it's worth if you get that news. And there's late swap available. He's going to do some damage in what's certainly not a terrible matchup for him. Not that he's not entirely matchup proof, but ever since they put him on his 21-minute dealio, he's averaging 2 goddamn fantasy points a minute, basically. He'd run out there and get you at least 40. I don't mind Elf in the spot. Not brilliant, and again, there are many, many cheaper plays, but you have to spend up somewhere, and a lot of these mid-price guys are going to be under-owned. Random out there, played the entire overtime in the last game, played 43 minutes, I think it was, so yeah, Elf at $7,000. Certainly all the usage missing on this team. Again, Anthony Davis technically probable. That's irrelevant. I feel dumb saying it, because he's been, I think, probable 4 times and doubtful once in the last 5 games he sat, which really the question to me is, what was the difference on the one doubtful day? Really wish I knew that. But obviously, all the studs for this team still out. Frank Jackson's still out, which is relevant. Stanley Johnson's still out, which is relevant if you're looking at the the Pelicans of the last couple of weeks. We don't need to talk about Darius Miller and Drew Holiday and all that stuff. Check Diallo got more time than Christian Wood. Christian Wood was excellent, and they gave him 16 minutes. He had 25 fantasy points. Looked great. He was all the announcers could talk about. He was just not getting the time anymore. If you told me he got the time, I would love him. Liked him a lot in that game. Very, very frustrating. But yeah. That happened. I would play Check Diallo before I played Christian Wood. He's 3,900 on FanDuel. He's not out of play. But again, the matchup for these guys not nearly so great, but you'll get him at 1% ownership, and he is a guy who we've seen in the past when he's that cheap can spike a big number. So I'd have a non-zero amount of Check Diallo on FanDuel. You can obviously play Julius Randle. The ceiling is massive. It was very encouraging if you want to play Julius Randle to see them run him out there for the entirety of that overtime as well. But that got him up to 38 minutes. He was only going to play 33, but it seems like they're going to give him that 33, 34. So as far as spend-up options go, he doesn't rank as highly as Donovan Mitchell, some other guys for me. But if you want to play Julius Randle, I have no problem with it. So for me, this team really, I don't think I get to Okafor almost at all. Elfrid Payton, fine. Julius Randle, fine. Check Diallo on FanDuel, and I think that is it for me. Doing a news and alert check, and then gonna bang through some questions. See, there's a ton of spare time there. Favorite utility in a DKGPP? DJ Killikev just tweeted me. Give me a price range. Otherwise, you're just utility. You're saying who is my favorite player on the entire slate on DraftKings? Heads up, you skipped New Orleans. Natch. How many Nuggets is too many on one lineup FanDuel GPP? 5. Which I don't think it lets you do. So there isn't. They're also cheap that when you play 4, you're saying, I think 3 out of the 4 can be amazing and 1 can be dropped, and that can very much happen. So I don't think you're allowed to play 5 on FanDuel, so you can't play too many Nuggets on FanDuel. Because you're fine dropping 1. You know what I'm saying? Like if you play 4 Nuggets and they all cost $4,000 and they give you, I don't know, 42, 36, 31, and 21. It's like, oh, I dropped the 21. The other 3 got... So I don't think... And plus, they would be all your punts because you're spending $4,000 on 4 players, and then the rest of your squad would cost significant fundage. So you presume you'd be dropping one of them, and I don't think you can play 5. So there is no number of Nuggets that's too much. Thoughts on Hizania tonight? I like him a lot. I like him. I want to play a significant amount on FanDuel if I could, and would be very close to locking him in on DK, which feels awkward, to say the very least. Burning through... Actually, I'm going to look at ownership for a second again. We'll do an ownership refresh, talk about that for a second, then bang out 2 or 3 questions before we get in there to lock. So, again, looking, DraftKings, main slate. Plumlee now at 61%. I would have less than that. don't have any issue with any amount of Plumlee you choose to have. If you had 100%, you would be just fine. Cousins, 40%. Feels good. Trey Lyles, 36%. Feels good. De'Aaron Fox, 34%. I'd come in under that number. Just a few too many ways that can go wrong. He's not that cheap. There's so much good value. You almost want to spend up more on larger studs, but De'Aaron Fox is a wonderful play. Monty Morris, 31%, sure. JaMychal Green, 28%. Okay, at that price I'd come in. At that number I'd come in under. I didn't think he'd get that high. Mitch, 26. Yep, love it. He and Cousins are my two favorite centers, and the world agrees. Jalen Adams, 23. Probably coming under there. Again, that game makes my ass hurt. A few times this year with the Hawks where people are like, yeah, I mean, if you think of the team that people stacked up this year that disappointed the most, it was the Hawks. There's a few times they've gotten there, but there's been something like 9 times where people went, I'm playing every Hawk. And they were bad, like 6 of them mostly. Obviously, that's a oversimplification of a complex situation. Any other interesting ownership here? Barton, 17%. I feel fine with that. Bryant, 16%. I'd have owner that. Hazonia, 16%. On DK, I think I'm in. Sign a brother up. I don't know what more evidence you need that he can get there in this spot. Everyone starting for the Bucks, be warned. Yep, no, I've got it. Bledsoe, Sterling Brown getting the start at the 2, which is what I and hopefully all of you expected. FanDuel, Fox at 46%. Again, I'm going to come in under that number. It's not that it's not a good spot. It's just that 46% is more than you should be paying on a guy on a slate that's this juicy and deep, unless he costs less than $7,500. JaMychal Green, 32% now on FanDuel. Yeah, again, I probably would find my way to Trey Lyles first. Right now we have Trey Lyles at 21, which is well under Spalding and JaMychal Green. I'm fine with Trey Lyles in that spot. Okay, let's we'll do some QQs for you use and get in there. That's why the Hawks are going to go ham tonight. Yeah, it's certainly not that precise of a science. SGA or Caruso on DK in the GPP. I'd play Caruso if those are my starters. Barton and Cousins or Morris and Jackson DK GPP. I would run Barton and Cousins. Yahoo Cash, Durant and Josh Jackson or Giannis and Taurean Prince, considering Giannis might be limited. Yeah, Durant and Josh Jackson for that reason. Plumlee and Mitch Robb on FanDuel. Plumlee or Mitch Robinson on FanDuel? Mitch Robinson. I mean, he's $3,000 more, so I don't quite understand the question. At price, I prefer points per dollar. Plumlee. Checking some updates. Sorry, some things are breaking, and I want to make sure the slate doesn't. We are 10 seconds out. All right. 3, 2, 1. All right. That was, let us see some ownership on some guys. Okay. Payton or Fox on DK. At their current levels of ownership, I would play Elfrid Payton right now. I have Fox projected for more, but yeah, that was fun. We got through there pretty quick. Fareed, thought you like the GPP chance? Yeah, he's going to get his standard backup center time, and then with the blowout and an exceptional matchup, I like Kenneth Faried a lot in tournaments. He's not going to rank points per dollar as well as any of these guys. He just can't, unfortunately. But yeah, I think that's just fine. I got no issue with this. Okay, let's see if what do we have here tonight? $200,000 on the night slate. It was nice. They had some pretty. I do volunteer work Sunday mornings, and I was out later than I usually was, so I did not get back in time to be able to finish research and do a show. Answered some questions in the premium Slack chat for the Awesemo members, but didn't get to do the double shows today. I was hoping to do. Ownership, Josh Jackson, 31%. Yeah, I'd probably come in a little bit under that. Again, this is DK, where the price is still pretty palatable at $6,700. You worry about foul trouble. You worry about just, like, fuckitude. But if you were running out Houston especially, you wanted to have a good bit of that. Ray Spalding, 22%. Again, that's about right. That's what we talked about in that 18-22 range. Jalen Adams, 20%. I would have less. There's just so much good value. I'm really worried that goes wrong. I like saving, the extra, but especially with the Buck starters in there, he probably still plays like 30 minutes and plays blowout time. But I don't know. And I don't know how much time Bazemore and Bembry are out there, both of whom kind of play point guard. So there's a real chance Jalen Adams just sort of watches the game. So I just feel better about the Monty Morrises of the world. So I think I'd come in under on Jalen Adams, rather. James Harden, that's where my slip there came. 19%. Okay, that's about where I think he'd be. I'd probably have a little bit more than that, just because I like the value and the super ceiling. Bledsoe, 14%. With everyone in there and a probable blowout. I will say he rested everything but 3 minutes of a game recently, so maybe he gets his full time even if they're crushing. Giannis, 10%. I get it. Obviously, a lot of ways it can go wrong, but Giannis playing 30 minutes and scoring 68 fantasy points would not shock me here. Bembry, 9%. Okay, again, this is what I'm saying. This is that's not a massive ownership, but this is not a good matchup. Not all of these Hawks can manage to be good. Alex Len, 7%. I like that. I'd have well more than that. One of the spots you can get over on the Bucks would be at center there. Jamal Crawford, 7%. Might be, I don't want to spend it. He has obviously been playing 30 minutes repeatedly, has put up some retro throwback performances, looked really good in a couple of these games. I don't know how much he plays, and they don't have to play him. He got a random recent DMP for no reason. So, let's see. Pat Connaughton, 5%. Sure. Dragon Bender, 6%. 6%, I'm fine with it. Not a good matchup, but dude should have to play 35 minutes unless the game goes completely out of control. Clint Capella, 4%. Like him a lot at 4%. Let's see. Torian Prince, 3.5. Sure. Again, my thoughts on the Bucks and Hawks are well noted. Sterling Brown, also 3.5. Kent Bazemore, 3. Probably like that more at his price. Chris Paul, 3. Kevin Huerter, 3. McCall Bridges, 1.7. Humphreys, 1.7. E.G. Eric Gordon, 1.5. Justin Anderson, 1.36. George Hill, 1.26. That one confusing to me with the price up and everybody in, but blowout run. Maybe goes out there in the blowout, lays it on the Hawks. Brook Lopez, 1%. I like more than 1% Brook Lopez against the Hawks. Kenneth Faried, 1%. See, great minds think alike. Ersan Ilyasova, 0.72. Troy Daniels, 0.70. Vince Carter, 0.68. DJ Wilson, 0.68. PJ Tucker, 0.66. Tim Frazier, 0.48. He's had a good game this year where he played 53 goddamn minutes against the Hawks. Elia Kobo, 0.41. Deonta Davis, 0.31. I would have liked more than that. Blowout, various other stuff. Look, I could have gotten behind Deonta Davis here. I haven't hit Isaac Humphries yet, have we? It's coming, I think. Maybe we hit it and I missed it. No? Alright, Deonta Davis got it in there over Isaac Humphries. Jimmer Fredette, 0.24. Might play. Gerald Green, 0.22. Melton, 0.20. House, 0.18. Rivers, 0.15. Bonzi Colson, 0.07. Because he's got a great history in this matchup. Amon Shumpert, 0.06. Dwayne Dedman, 0.01. Congratulations, you've played yourself. Did nobody play Isaac Humphries, or did I skip over his name? There he is. 1.67% Humphries. I'm like, I have to presume people ran out minimum price guys starting. He's big. He's not good, but he's really big. Aussie style. Favorite forward, 4,200 or lower on DK, playing 2 Nuggets. My answer's probably going to be Trey Lyles at $3,100, presuming you can spend the money on something. If you can't, and it's just raw points. Oh, actually, it's probably gonna be Will Barton for me. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Will Barton. I like Will Barton as what I expect to be somewhat lower ownership. He does have real upside and has started at point guard for this team in the past. Now they're starting Monty Morris, but Jamal Murray not being there, is going to add a little cookie to Gary Harris and presumably a medium-sized cookie to Will Barton. I do think there's a real chance of some more of an upside being expressed there. So 4,200. Regardless, I don't care if you have 2 Nuggets already. The Nuggets are so cheap, you need to be around the 4th one before I start caring. What's a good pivot off Fox and FanDuel and a GPP? You asked me 30 seconds before a lock. I got nothing for you. I guess I can look at a late slate. Maybe there's like a 7:30. Click to the lobby on FanDuel. Sure, there's a 7:30. That's an express though. Yeah, I got nothing for you. I think you asked less than a minute before lock. You can obviously you can Bledsoe against the Hawks. You can. There are other places you can go, but it was more of a pay down spot for me, or even a pay up spot where I thought Dame and Steph certainly had the ceiling to get to there. There's nothing wrong with Fox. If you got stuck with De'Aaron Fox, the likelihood is he's going to play more than 30 minutes, have more than 40 fantasy points, and be just fine. Dropped, I think, 58 in this matchup earlier this year, so there's still a real upside there. It's just with the popularity and not being 100% and the team having nothing to play for, that's a little higher ownership than I would have wanted to see. So, I will not be back tomorrow, but that's okay because there's no NBA games. They're instead going to be celebrating the finale, those college basketball players, and then the last 2 days of the season, Tuesday and Wednesday, like 13 and 14 games or some crazy shit. So I'll be looking forward to those, and then really looking forward to postseason basketball where, again, the format changes up a little bit and people are terrible. And it's good when people are terrible because y'all make some more money. So thank you as always for your rapt attention. Sorry for the slow start, but got through everything. And best of luck in your contests.